Multiple naming conventions are used by a data grid. To maintain internal consistency, a data grid must assign unique identifiers to all entities that are being managed, including users, data files, collections, and resources. For each type of entity, a unique identifier is created that can then be used to define relationships for access controls, membership in a collection, linking of metadata to files and collections, and storage of files on storage resources. User ID is a unique identifier for each person and group of persons. Data ID is a unique identifier for each file. Note that all replicas of a file have the same data ID. Call ID is a unique identifier for a collection. RESC ID is a unique identifier for a storage resource. The creation of access controls relies upon the existence of these internal unique identifiers. Instead of defining a relationship using the name of the data file or collection and the name of the user, the relationship is specified between the unique internal identifiers. Thus, data access user ID contains the unique user ID for a person. Data access data ID contains the unique data ID for a file. Call access user ID contains the unique user ID for a person. Call access call ID contains the unique call ID for a collection. Every user has a unique username and an associated unique user ID. To simplify arrangement of users into groups, each user is also given a unique group name that is the same as their username. The logical path to the home directory for each person uses their unique username. There are two user group names that are always created in a data grid that are used to specify public groups. Public is the user group name that includes all persons who have an account in the data grid. If you want to grant access to all of the other registered accounts, you would grant access to a file for the public group. Anonymous is the user group name for persons who do not have an account in the data grid. If you want to give access to anyone in the world, you would grant access to a file for the anonymous group. Anonymous access read privilege is required to create a URL for a file. Digital libraries and data centers use multiple types of identifiers depending upon the types of operations they perform upon the identifiers. Operations performed upon an identifier require a system somewhere in the world that can resolve the identifier to an object and then apply the operation to the object. Identifiers in current use include GUID, a globally unique identifier. Two objects that have the same GUID are supposed to be identical. No location information is associated with the GUID. Handle. This provides storage location information along with a unique identifier. Information about the handle system is available at handle.net. A unique URI can be constructed for each handle, enabling access. Ticket. The iRODS data grid can construct a URL for a file or collection that contains both storage location information and access control information. The URL can be used for a limited time period or for a limited number of allowed accesses. Logical name. The iRODS data grid applies multiple operations to the logical names assigned to files within the data grid zone. Operations include location information, access controls, arrangement in collections, and descriptive metadata. Note that each type of identifier supports a different set of allowed operations. Within the iRODS data grid, multiple types of identifiers are used. We show examples for each type of identifier. Internal identifier. An example is data ID. This is an integer stored in the metadata catalog and is similar to a GUID. The combination of the data grid zone name and the data ID uniquely identifies a file. iRODS URL. This is a standard format for construction of a URL to reference a file in the data grid. An example is shown here. This requires setting anonymous access on the file before the URL can be used. This URL references a file in the LifeLive Zone data grid under the RWMore account for a file called foo1. Ticket. This is similar to the URL, but also contains information about the ticket and tracks the time period and the number of accesses. This ticket is for the same file in LifeLib zone account RWMore file foo1. This ticket is for the same file in the LifeLib zone in the account RWMore for file foo1. This adds a time limit to the URL. Logical name. The combination of a data name, collection name, and zone name is a unique identifier for a file. There is a data ID and data call ID associated with every data name. The same file name can appear in multiple collections, but they would have different data IDs. Physical file name. The physical location where the file resides is defined by the data rest name, storage resource location, and data path, path name on the storage resource. The terminology used in the data grid books differentiates between files and collections. A path name is the full logical collection hierarchy to a file. An example is LifeLib Zone Home RWMore Class INLS 624 foo1. This references the file foo1 in the subdirectory Class INLS 624 in the RWMore Home collection. A collection name contains the full logical collection hierarchy. Thus, the collection name for class INLS 624 is LifeLib Zone Home RWMore Class INLS 624. A relative collection name is a subcollection within the current working directory. As you move between subcollections, the data grid automatically resets the current working directory. For this example, a relative collection name is class INLS 624. A file name is just the name of a file. In this example, the file name is foo1. Take 7 minutes to answer exercise 20. Decide which persistent state attributes or account names within the data grid can be used to define a path name to a file, and set up public access by a person without an account. Please load your answer into the lifetime library in the subcollection class INLS 624 by the end of today's class. The University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill uses policy-based data management to implement project collections, repositories, collaboration environments, archives, and processing pipelines. Within UNC, there are more than 10 data grids that are running in production. They include the School of Information and Library Science Lifetime Library for student digital collections, the Carolina Digital Repository for preserving faculty collections, hydrology workflows for the Institute for the Environment, a preservation archive for ODM, a genomics data grid that organizes data sets from multiple independent research projects, patient data for the Lineberger Cancer Institute, distribution of storm surge modeling for the AdCirc application, and an archive for the Genie experimental network. A future task is the federation of the data grids to enable interdisciplinary collaborations. Through the UNC data grids, links have been established to multiple national collaborations. The DFC data grid federates with the iPlant Collaborative, which has 30,000 users, manages 40 million files, and over a petabyte of data. The users are organized in small teams of about 5 persons, implying the need for strict access controls to keep each project data private. Other groups using data grids participate in the iRODS consortium or independently download and run the iRODS data grid software. Examples of federal agencies include the NASA Goddard Center for Climate Simulations and the NOAA Climatic Data Center. Examples of other NSF-funded projects include HubZero and the Temporal Dynamics of Learning Center. Through the iRODS consortium, vendors are now using data grid software. A notable community is centered around management of genomics data. A second community is composed of storage vendors who are integrating data management into their storage products. Many international collaborations have grown out of national scale projects within the United States. An example is the International Neuroinformatics Coordinating Facility, which is a successor to the NIH Biomedical Informatics Research Network. Multiple countries have chosen policy-based data management systems to implement their repositories. Within France, these applications include a national data grid, a national digital library, and support for international collaborations. Examples of other countries implementing national data collaboration environments include Australia, New Zealand, Italy, Sweden, Norway, Finland, the United Kingdom, Taiwan, and EUDAT, a European Union data grid. A simple way to identify current projects using data grids is to do a Google query for iRods using the advanced search feature to limit the results to sites that have made changes within the last week. An example for a query issued on October 9, 2015, lists projects in the US and Switzerland. The projects in the US include High Performance Computing Centers, Texas Advanced Computing Center, the Texas Digital Library, TCDL, and the Open Science Grid. The evolution of the software use can be tracked by making this query every week. We will compare results with this query later in the course.